Hi guys, welcome to Fierce and Pretty. Honey here, and today I thought I would finally continue with the Thoth study series. So this would be the 5th episode, so that's why we have the 5th Thoth deck. And then today I thought I would talk about a bit more how to work with astrology in the Thoth deck, and kind of mainly focusing on the minors. But let's check the deck first. So the deck of today is just a really standard US Games green box. So this is the big sized Thoth deck that you can get anywhere. So before I trimmed the deck, it looked pretty much like this. This is not actually the same deck. This is the gilded version which has the golden gilded edges, but the deck had the white borders, which I really hate in the modern Thoth decks. But the borders are just similar in this edition than they were in this one. But I did edge it, and it was the first time I used my guillotine, my Fiskars guillotine. I can link the video there if anybody wants to see how I trimmed it. It's a mute video with some whiskey drinking in it. So I really wanted to have one Thoth deck without the keywords and without the borders, just so I could focus on with the art. I did edge this deck, and I actually did a second coating on it yesterday, and I used the Distress ink pad with the color Rusty Hinge. I chose this color because I think it fits the best from the colors that I did have to this. I actually first made one mistake. I started with one card and I had a dark blue pro marker, and the pro marker actually did bleed into these cards, so I can't recommend using pro markers with this deck if you have edged it, because it did start to bleed a lot. And of course I had the darkest possible color with the dark blue, so it didn't become nice, but I fixed the card. So I started the dark blue pro marker edging with this. You can still see a light hue of the black there, or the blue, but then I cut a bit more of this card, and I was able to kinda save it. The deck ain't perfect, but I guess trimmed decks never are. But I really appreciate having a trimmed Thoth, because I think trimming the Thoth makes you really focus on the colors and the images, and you don't think about the keywords so much. So this is a deck that I use in different ways than the other ones. That's why I like to have also a trimmed version. And many people who use Thoth for reading with customers say that they prefer to use this one trimmed, because then it doesn't have the keywords that can sometimes bother Aquarians. But I really like the way that the colors just burst out from these cards. So that's my trimmed Thoth, and let's get on with today's topic. As always with my Thoth series, I do have a book, and as you can see, you probably can't read what it says if you're not a Finnish person. It is a Finnish Thoth guide, and I don't expect you to be interested about this book per se, but actually I found something really nice about it that inspired me doing this video, and it was the way that it talked about the astrological correspondences in the minors. So working with a chart like this is helpful while you're learning Thoth, I found this on the internet somewhere. But this is an easy way to start to understand the minors. Which zodiac signs are the cardinal, fixed, mutable, in which element, because elemental correspondences are important. But now when we're focusing on the minors in the Thoth deck, you see a lot about the planetary connections. Like for example, Moon in Taurus in the Six of Discs, for example. So this is something really useful while trying to figure out the astrological correspondences in the Thoth. We don't have all evening here to go through with all the minors, but I'll show you a few examples. This is the Four of Wands in the Thoth deck, and the card's name is Completion. First, when I started with the Thoth, I was like, okay, there's Venus there and there's Aries there, but what's that got to do with anything? And I was a bit puzzled because I'm not really experienced with astrology, but the main thing that the Thoth has done, that it has inspired me to learn more about astrology. And I have gotten my first astrology book. I decided to get the first book in Finnish because it would help me to actually really truly understand the topics. Then I can broaden my views and get something also in English, but learn the vocabulary and to truly understand what everything means. Because when you listen to an astrologer talking, it's like a totally alien language. Most of the time I don't know what the heck they are saying, and then they're like, yeah, because you know this planet is like doing tap dancing with that planet, and oh, that's so clear that it's like that. I'm like, okay, but that's the level where I want to reach with astrology. So I find Thoth deck really helpful way to inspire me to do that. But okay, if we think about the tarot deck, if we know anything about the tarot, we know who's representing Venus in the majors, and actually we do know who is Aries. So the Empress is clearly the Venus in the majors, and we can apply the things that we know about the Empress and the things that we know about Venus to this card, and then see the logic why this card is called the Completion, and what does it actually mean that the Venus is in Aries. If you are not an astrologer like I'm not, this might be the trickiest part in the beginning when you start learning Thoth. But don't be worried. If I can crack this at some point, then everybody can. But if we think about what the Four of Wands represents, stability, it can symbolize sometimes also marriage or engagement. This card can speak about this placing with the Venus being in Aries. It can speak about sharp instincts, passion, showing your emotions, self-confidence, sincerity, and I don't know, I think it's quite easy to imagine the Empress being with the Emperor, and they are all like looking at each other, and they're like, And then if you're one of those people like I am, that you still have to think about the RWS card with the Thoth, because I still do that a bit. So then here you see the Empress and the Emperor kissing underneath the tent with the four wands and the flowers crossed. So here Venus as Empress and the Emperor as Aries, they are a good match. So this is a good card. So that's basically the idea. Let's just quickly check a few other combinations. So next we have the Five of Wands. And now let's talk about Saturn. But the Saturn is not with Aries in here. It's with Leo. So another fire sign. So what does that mean? This Saturn in Leo could mean like ambition, striving, some restrictions that have been put on creativity, frustration, and controlling the way you handle the energy. So the way that you could start easing into astrology, for example with this card, would be that you would read a bit about Saturn and then a bit about Leo and see what qualities combine in this card and how it makes sense to you. So knowing who is who in Thoth deck is actually quite easy if you haven't trimmed the deck. So if you're learning and you want to check easily the correspondences with the cards, it's wise to have at least an untrimmed version about. But here, as we see the universe card, there we have it. We have the answer there. And also we do have the Hebrew letters, but today we're not talking about Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. But you have a great cheat sheet in the Thoth cards. So Saturn is represented the universe card, because you know we're talking about the Thoth deck now. So Saturn here, and Leo, who's Leo in Thoth, she is lust. She's riding the lion there. So I think like easy way to learn about this stuff is to get a quite simple astrology book if you are a beginner like me. At least that's what I'm doing. I have here astrology book in Finnish, and as you can see I have only a short paragraph describing what is Saturn like. But while I'm starting here, it's enough for me. And then also on top of that, I do have a short paragraph about Leo. But I'm gonna marry a Leo, so I have quite a good insights about Leo and how Saturn is restricting the Leo here and how it creates the energy that the Five of Wands carries. And Five of Wands is actually quite similar card with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And by the way, the next episode I thought I would compare a Thoth deck with a Smith-Waite deck, and I would pick out the cards that in my opinion are similar, which are the easy cards in Thoth to learn. And then I will pick out the cards that differ in Thoth. There are a few placings, few namings in the majors, but mostly the differences, I think, come in some of the minors and how they are interpreted in these cards painted by Lady Frida Harris instead of Pixie's card in the Smith-Waite deck. But also there is a third category that I'm going to do in that video, is cards that on a first glance look a bit different, but then actually when you get deeper into the Thoth cards you find similarities underneath. But more about that in the next video. Okay, I'm switching the deck so we can actually see some of the useful things that are in the Thoth deck. Now we're going to look at the Six of Cups, which is the pleasure card. And here we see the symbol of Sun and Scorpio. And being a narcissistic idiot that I am, this is the card of my decan, and I chose it because it's easy for me to work with it. And finding your own cards in the minors in the Thoth, I recommend checking out the video when I spoke about Lon Milos Duquette's book. there we have some great tables for this use. So finding the Sun card from the majors is easy. Sun actually is the Sun card. Unlike the Moon is a bit trickier, because the Moon is High Priestess and not the Moon. But then, who's Scorpio? Scorpio's, of course, the Death card. So what does this mean when Sun is in Scorpio and it creates this pleasure? Some keywords that this Finnish book gives me about this card is pleasure, the spiritual dimension of sexuality, emotional life renewal, and loyalty. And the Sun in Scorpio represents controlling the emotions, faithfulness in love, the importance of physical unity or union, and understanding other people's motives more deeply. And as you can see in the Thoth decks, the cups are different material also sometimes in these cards when the mood and the message of the card changes. And in this Finnish book it says about this card that in the Six of Cups, the cups are made of copper, and this metal connects to Venus, the planet of love. And all of the cups have this beautiful blooming lotus, and you can see these tangled little snakes inside the cup that represent renewal and rebirth. And in this card they symbolize especially deep transformation and renewal that is happening through sexuality. The book says that this card represents fearless yielding to deep sexual love experience that will inevitably lead also to a transformer in a spiritual level. It symbolized physical pleasure and emotional well-being, connecting in a way you've never done before. It also represents the abundance and balance in other areas of life, and also true human connections. It's completion that is not so much attached to external circumstances. And one thing that I like about actually this Finnish book, even though it doesn't go really deep into the symbology, is that it gives you like the keywords, the astrology correspondences, then it talks about the card, but then it gives you an advice. An advice for this card, the Six of Cups, would be like when you dare to give from yourself genuinely and move closer to other people without any bias, that whole new dimensions would open up in your life. When you dare to talk about your deepest feelings and your visions freely, you might find out that other people respond to you more than you even expected. It means that you have an ability to speak with other people, especially with deep, in the area of deep emotions. So you should count in yourself. You should enjoy your own gifts and your talents. Then the book gives also conclusions. And in the conclusion sections it says that you are allowed to enjoy of life in all areas. The more you give yourself to love and the pleasures of life, the more deeper you can connect also another human being. Then it talks about the reversed meanings, and it says that it's like a warning that you are compulsively trying to get pleasures. that can turn into selfish wanting and also using other people. Then it gives you a question with the card. And with this card it says, are you able to let go about the unnecessary ideas and restrictions? Are you able to enjoy all sides of life with sincerity and in a pure way? Then in the last section it also gives you a meditation to it card. And with this card, with the pleasure card, the meditation would be like, I dare to be myself and I dare to give from myself without any calculation. I don't know if the translation works, but I'm free flowing here from Finnish to English. But yeah, that was Sun in Scorpio in the Six of Cups, the pleasure card. There were some few examples about cards in the Thoth minors, but I highly recommend finding one of those round pie diagrams in internet, checking those, using those. The Lon Milos book is also good, but I highly recommend you trying to find the connections about the planets and the zodiac signs and what you know about them. You could Google about each planet, you could Google about each zodiac sign, find the people you know, and then try the technique of matching the planetary trump and then the zodiacal trump next to the minor card. Those are really fun practices and exercises, and actually I did that last Saturday myself outside in the garden while I was sunbathing in the first sun rays that we got here in Finland, and I ended up burning half of my leg. And don't be scared, I think this was supposed to be fun, and I guess it will take years for me to figure this shit out eventually, but at least I'm enjoying it. And it's gonna take some astrology books, and hopefully at some point when I have gathered enough experience about astrology that I have read enough that maybe I will take some course or something. But I want to have some basic knowledge before going into some course, because then if I have the basic knowledge from several different writers, at least I know something, so I can ask questions and see if I agree with the one who's teaching, and I don't end up adopting only one person's opinion on this stuff. So my opinion with astrology is that it is tricky. It's gonna take time, but astrology is so much older than the tarot. But astrology and tarot, they are like really good friends and they can benefit from each other. I think it's a fun challenge that I'm willing to accept, to learn the astrology step by step and go deeper. And that way I can be better with the tarot also. And also here at the end, I would like to recommend one resource that I encountered this morning. I was listening one episode, because I always, when I go out for a walk, I listen to podcasts. And today I ended up listening Biddy Tarot podcast, where she was interviewing an astrologer. And she was Deborah Silverman. She actually has a YouTube channel, and I've been checking out the short videos today. At least I found them very fun and useful. If you don't mind, at the end part in every video, she's kind of talking about her courses and what you can download and subscribe and whatever. But if you ignore that, the content of the videos, even though they were short, was great. So even today I was able, like during 2 hours when I was driving car, I listened to those short episodes from YouTube, and I was able to listen all about elemental correspondences with people, and then about the zodiacal signs. So even those short things, when you listen to them from many sources several times, You will learn more each and every time and gather these bits and pieces that eventually will create your own understanding about the astrology and how it works with the tarot. So I'm on my journey, and I hope that you don't be scared and you are willing also to get deeper into astrology if it has been a bit of a scary subject for you earlier with the tarot. I don't think that it's necessary to know astrology, but I believe even without knowing anything about anything, that it will give me more depth and more understanding while working with the tarot. So there was today's episode about the trimmed Thoth deck and the astrology in the Thoth deck and the planetary and zodiacal correspondences in the minors in the Thoth deck. I hope that at least somebody learned something new or got inspired. If you have any comments or questions, please post them down below. And in the next Thoth episode, I'm going to go through the cards comparing Thoth with Smith-Waite cards. But hey, thanks again for watching. If you survived until the end, that's awesome. And until next time, bye now.